There are moments in life when things don't go as planned. We find ourselves in situations where we feel wronged, misunderstood, or disrespected. It's in these moments that the choice we make and how to respond can define us. And while it's easy to react in the heat of the moment, to lash out, to demand respect in a way that matches the intensity of our emotions, there is a power in staying quiet. Staying quiet. Staying quiet doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean accepting disrespect. And it certainly doesn't mean we are weak. It means we have enough control over ourselves to make a decision. We choose not to let the situation dictate our response. We choose to hold our ground without lowering ourselves to the level of those who may seek to provoke us. The truth is, silence is often one of the strongest forms of resistance. When we are disrespected, we are confronted with an opportunity to prove who we really are, not through our words, not through our actions in the moment, but through our ability to stay composed, to remain in control of ourselves. People will test us. They will push us to react, to defend, to retaliate. But when we understand that our true strength lies not in how we respond to the disrespect, but in how we don't, we start to see the situation for what it truly is: an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to rise above. In the face of disrespect, there's a certain dignity that comes with remaining silent. Silence isn't a form of submission. It's not about letting someone off the hook. It's about knowing that the person who disrespects you does not have the power to take away your peace unless you let them. When we react impulsively, when we let our emotions guide our actions, we relinquish control. But when we choose not to engage, when we remain quiet, we take back that control. We put the power where it belongs, with us. In the heat of the moment, it can feel like we have to say something, that we have to do something to defend ourselves. Our pride, our ego may whisper to us that silence is weakness, that if we don't stand up for ourselves right then and there, we will be seen as passive, or worse, as someone who accepts being disrespected. But silence, when wielded with intention, is not passive. It is a deliberate choice to rise above, to stay focused, to maintain one's integrity in the face of provocation. Silence speaks volumes. It says, I don't need to stoop to your level. It says, I am confident enough in who I am that your disrespect does not define me. In a world that is often driven by noise, where everyone is trying to be heard, to make a point, to get the last word, choosing silence is an act of strength. It's the refusal to be drawn into the chaos. It's saying that my value is not determined by your opinion of me, and I won't lower myself to engage in a back and forth that only diminishes both of us. Now, don't mistake this silence for passivity. Choosing to stay quiet doesn't mean we're letting people walk all over us. It doesn't mean we're accepting mistreatment. It means we are choosing not to respond with the same energy that was given to us. It means we are deciding that we are above the drama, above the petty conflict. It's a choice to focus on something greater than the momentary insult. When we stay quiet in the face of disrespect, we aren't just protecting ourselves from the negativity of others, we're also protecting our own peace of mind. The human mind has a remarkable ability to hold on to grudges, to replay insults and offenses over and over again, to let them consume us. But when we refuse to react, when we choose silence, we short-circuit that process. We don't give our minds the chance to dwell on the disrespect. We don't give ourselves the opportunity to ruminate on the hurt, the anger, or the frustration. We stay focused on the bigger picture, on the things that truly matter in life, rather than getting caught up in the petty squabbles of others. And here's something powerful to remember: when you choose silence, you choose your peace over their provocation. You refuse to let someone else control how you feel or how you respond. In doing so, you assert your boundaries in a way that doesn't require conflict or confrontation. You're telling the world that you know your worth, and no one's disrespect is going to shake that foundation. It's also worth considering that when we stay quiet, we gain time and space. In that moment, we're not reacting impulsively, we're not jumping into the fray, and we're certainly not escalating things. We're giving ourselves time to assess the situation, to understand it, and to decide how to move forward. This is where wisdom often comes in. Silence is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of maturity. It's the ability to rise above the immediate emotions and make a more calculated, measured response when the time is right. There's also an unspoken message in staying quiet. When we don't engage with disrespect, we set an example for others. We show them that there's a better way to handle things, that responding with anger or frustration isn't the only option. People around us, especially those who look up to us or follow our lead, take notice of how we react in tough situations. When we stay calm, when we stay silent in the face of disrespect, we model emotional resilience. We show others that they don't have to be slaves to their emotions or to the actions of others. They too can choose to remain composed. The truth is, every time we choose to stay silent in the face of disrespect, we make ourselves stronger. Each instance is an opportunity to practice restraint, to build our emotional fortitude, to show ourselves that we have control over our responses. Over time, these moments add up and we become less likely to react impulsively. Our sense of peace becomes more rooted, more grounded in who we are rather than in what happens around us. Staying quiet also allows us to preserve our energy. When we engage with negativity, we waste our energy. We give away pieces of ourselves to people or situations that don't deserve it. But silence, when chosen with intention, preserves our energy. It keeps us focused on the things that matter. It helps us conserve our emotional resources for the things that truly require our attention, for the people who truly deserve our time and our energy. Another reason to stay quiet is that sometimes our words can be misinterpreted or worse, used against us. In moments of anger, it's easy to say things we don't mean, to let our emotions dictate our speech. But words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. In contrast, silence gives us the power to decide when and how we will speak. It allows us to think carefully, to choose our words wisely, to ensure that what we say is exactly what we mean. In a world that often rewards quick reactions and emotional outbursts, silence is an act of discipline. It's a sign of self-control, a refusal to be swayed by the immediate emotional charge of the situation. And let's not forget the deeper truth here. Not all disrespect is worth engaging with. There are times when the person who disrespects us is simply looking for a reaction. They may be trying to get under our skin, to provoke us into a confrontation, to see us lose our composure. In those situations, silence is the best response. It denies them the satisfaction of seeing us lose our cool. It takes away their power. When we react, we give them the control. But when we stay quiet, we take that control back. We say, in essence, I won't give you the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. At the same time, staying quiet doesn't mean we don't have the right to stand up for ourselves when the time is right. It simply means that we choose the appropriate moment to do so. We don't let the disrespect of others determine when and how we speak. We decide when we are ready to address it on our terms, when we are calm and collected, when we have the emotional clarity to respond in a way that serves us and not the other person. This is the power of silence. It doesn't silence you as forever. It simply ensures that when we do speak, our words are measured, powerful, and meaningful. The art of staying quiet in the face of disrespect is ultimately about self-respect. It's about recognizing that your worth is not determined by others' opinions of you. It's about knowing that you are in control of how you react. You are in control of how you respond to the challenges life throws at you. And most importantly, you are in control of your peace. Staying quiet is not about being submissive, it's about being confident enough in your own strength and your own worth that you refuse to let anyone's disrespect rattle you. It's about knowing that your peace of mind is far more important than any fleeting moment of validation or victory that comes from proving someone else wrong. There will always be people who try to tear us down, who try to provoke us, who try to bring us into their drama. But the choice is ours. We can either engage in that drama, or we can choose to rise above it. Silence is often the most dignified response. It's the refusal to let someone else's actions control how we feel. It's a declaration of independence, of emotional maturity, and of self-respect. The next time someone disrespects you, remember this: the greatest response is not always the loudest. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say nothing at all. There's a common misconception that silence, especially in the face of disrespect, is a sign of weakness or submission. Society often associates silence with powerlessness or defeat. If someone insults you or belittles you, and you choose not to respond, you may be seen as passive, or worse, as someone who accepts the disrespect. But the truth is that silence is one of the most powerful choices you can make in those moments. It is not a sign of submission, rather, it is a reflection of strength, self-control, and wisdom. When we choose silence, we are exercising the power to remain unshaken in the face of provocation. It is an act of emotional sovereignty, one that requires far more inner strength than reacting in anger or frustration. One of the first things to understand is that silence in the face of disrespect is not about being passive. In fact, it's the opposite. It is an active decision, a conscious choice to rise above the situation rather than engage with it. Reacting in anger, shouting back, or retaliating may seem like a way to regain control or assert dominance, but in reality, it often has the opposite effect. It lowers you to the same level as those who seek to provoke you, drawing you into a cycle of negativity. But silence allows you to maintain your integrity. It gives you the power to stay above the fray, to not let the disrespect of others determine your emotional state. When someone disrespects you, there's often a temptation to prove them wrong, to assert your value and demonstrate that you won't tolerate mistreatment. This reaction can stem from the natural desire to defend oneself and protect one's dignity. However, in many cases, responding with emotion or aggression only fuels the conflict, making the situation worse. By staying silent, you take a step back. You don't let your emotions be manipulated by the provocations of others. Instead of letting their words dictate your mood or behavior, you choose not to engage. This is not about allowing the disrespect to slide, it's about understanding that you don't need to prove your worth to anyone. You are confident in who you are, and that confidence does not need to be validated by external sources. Silence in this context becomes a form of resistance. It's an act of strength that says, your words cannot hurt me because I choose how I respond to them. When you remain silent, you are not accepting the disrespect, but instead choosing to protect your peace. You're creating space between yourself and the negativity, and in doing so, you are taking the high road. In a world where people are often quick to react, silence can be a powerful way to assert your boundaries without engaging in the emotional turmoil that comes from conflict. It's important to recognize that silence doesn't equate to submission, it's about self-mastery. There's a significant difference between submitting to someone's mistreatment and choosing not to react. The act of choosing silence is rooted in the understanding that you are not defined by other people's behavior. You are in control of your own responses, and in choosing silence, you exercise control over how you allow external circumstances to affect you. By refusing to react to the disrespect, you are signaling to the world that you don't need to seek validation or approval from others in order to maintain your self-worth. Your sense of value is intrinsic, it comes from within, and is not dependent on how others treat you. Moreover, silence often allows for more reflection and clarity. When we react impulsively to disrespect, we may say things we don't mean or escalate a situation unnecessarily. We can get caught up in the emotions of the moment, allowing ourselves to be driven by anger or frustration. But silence gives us a moment to collect ourselves, to breathe, to think. It gives us the time and space to assess the situation and decide whether or not it's worth engaging with. Often we find that it's not worth our energy to react, that the disrespect is coming from a place of ignorance, insecurity, or jealousy. Responding would only further fuel the fire, and silence becomes the most dignified response. In some cases, silence also prevents us from saying things that we will regret later. When we allow our emotions to dictate our actions, we often end up speaking out of anger, which can lead to hurtful words or actions that we don't really mean. These words can linger far longer than the initial disrespect, leaving us feeling regretful and diminished. But by choosing silence, we avoid saying things we can't take back, and we maintain our composure. Our words, when we choose to use them, become far more powerful because they are deliberate and intentional. We don't waste our words in moments of frustration, and when we do speak, our words carry far more weight. This principle extends to how we view conflict in general. Often, conflict arises when two people have differing views, egos clash, or when someone tries to assert dominance or control. In such moments, silence serves as a reminder that we do not need to engage in every argument, every disagreement, or every attempt to diminish our worth. Silence allows us to withdraw from unnecessary confrontations and preserves our energy for the things that truly matter. Instead of getting caught in a petty battle, we can save our emotional resources for things that align with our values, our growth, and our long-term goals. Another key element of silence is that it gives us the opportunity to observe. When we choose to stay quiet in the face of disrespect, we create space for the other person's behavior to reveal itself more clearly. Sometimes people are not fully aware of the impact their words or actions have, and when we don't immediately react, it gives them a moment to reflect on their own behavior. This doesn't guarantee that they will change, but it can make them aware of the consequences of their actions. Silence, therefore, can be a powerful tool for not only protecting ourselves, but also giving others the chance to recognize their own missteps. Moreover, silence has the unique ability to make others question their own behavior. Often, those who disrespect or insult others do so to get a reaction, to provoke, or to feel superior. When they don't get the reaction they expect, when you remain silent, it can leave them confused, disarmed, and unsure of how to proceed. This moment of discomfort can be far more effective than any verbal confrontation. The lack of reaction sends a message you won't be manipulated or controlled by their actions, and that's an unsettling thing for people who are accustomed to using others' emotions as leverage. When we choose silence in the face of disrespect, we also assert our emotional boundaries. We are telling others that they cannot simply say or do whatever they want without consequences. This is not to be confused with giving in or allowing people to mistreat us, but rather with establishing that we will not let anyone dictate how we respond. Our emotional responses are ours to control, and silence allows us to set that boundary in a powerful way. By not reacting, we are protecting our mental and emotional well-being, ensuring that we are not drawn into unhealthy dynamics or drama. Silence can also be a form of self-respect. It communicates that you value yourself enough not to waste your time or energy on things that are beneath you. When we react to disrespect, we often lower ourselves to the level of those trying to provoke us. But silence allows us to stand above the situation. It's a way of saying, I don't need to prove my worth through confrontation. I already know who I am, and I don't need anyone's validation to affirm that. In this way, silence becomes a powerful declaration of self-respect and inner strength. Additionally, silence in the face of disrespect allows us to demonstrate maturity and wisdom. People who have learned to control their reactions in difficult situations are often seen as more mature and grounded. They don't get swept up in emotional outbursts or petty arguments. Instead, they remain composed and thoughtful, which can serve as an inspiration to others. When we choose to stay silent in the face of disrespect, we demonstrate that we are not controlled by the impulses of the moment. Instead, we have the emotional intelligence to rise above the situation and deal with it in a more measured, effective way. Choosing silence also encourages us to become more self-reflective. Instead of focusing on the other person's words or actions, we can take the time to reflect on our own feelings, motivations, and responses. This practice of self-reflection helps us grow emotionally and spiritually. We start to understand why certain things trigger us and learn how to handle them in healthier ways. Silence allows us the space to work through our own emotions without the external noise clouding our judgment. Furthermore, silence can act as a tool of empowerment. When we choose to remain silent, we take away the power of the person trying to provoke us. They are left without the satisfaction of seeing us react. In that moment, we retain our power. We don't allow someone else's words or actions to dictate our emotional state. This act of withholding a reaction is a way of reclaiming control and asserting that we are not easily swayed or manipulated. By choosing silence, we preserve our strength and remain steadfast in our self-assurance. Over time, the more we practice silence in the face of disrespect, the easier it becomes. We develop a stronger sense of self-awareness and self-mastery. Our confidence grows and we become more grounded in who we are. We begin to realize that the opinions and actions of others have far less power over us than we once thought. Silence, in this sense, becomes a way of cultivating inner peace. It allows us to maintain our calm and clarity no matter what happens around us. Ultimately, silence is not about avoiding conflict or pretending that disrespect doesn't hurt. It is about choosing not to engage with negativity and instead using the moment to affirm our own strength, wisdom, and self-respect. It is about recognizing that our worth is not contingent on the opinions of others, and that our peace of mind is far more valuable than any fleeting satisfaction that might come from proving someone wrong. Silence is, therefore, not an act of submission, it is an act of empowerment, one that allows us to stay true to ourselves no matter the circumstances. Emotional resilience is a concept that speaks to the ability to adapt and recover from difficult, stressful, or challenging situations. It's the inner strength that allows us to stay grounded when life throws its worst at us. But emotional resilience isn't just about bouncing back from adversity, it's about the ability to maintain our emotional balance in the face of it. It's about maintaining composure when things feel overwhelming, staying steady in the midst of chaos, and finding ways to process difficult emotions without being consumed by them. One of the most powerful tools we have for building and exercising emotional resilience is restraint. Restraint isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing how we respond to our emotions rather than letting our emotions control us. It's the practice of pausing, reflecting, and making intentional decisions rather than reacting impulsively. This kind of self-control plays a crucial role in fostering emotional resilience because it helps us stay calm in moments of stress and manage our reactions in ways that serve us instead of hurting us. Emotional resilience, when rooted in restraint, means that we don't allow external circumstances or other people's actions to dictate how we feel or behave. It's the ability to stand firm and remain unshaken even when provoked or triggered. This doesn't mean that we don't feel the full weight of emotions like anger, sadness, frustration, or fear. We are all human, and we all experience these emotions. However, emotional resilience through restraint allows us to experience these emotions without letting them drive our behavior. It teaches us how to respond thoughtfully, rather than reacting impulsively. And this is what keeps us grounded through life's inevitable ups and downs. The ability to practice restraint requires a deep sense of self-awareness. It's not enough to simply recognize that we're feeling something in the moment. True emotional resilience comes from understanding why we feel what we feel, where those emotions are coming from, and how they are influencing our thoughts and actions. When we can step back and observe our feelings without judgment, we create the space necessary to choose a response rather than react automatically. This is one of the fundamental aspects of emotional resilience, not allowing our emotions to take the wheel, but instead taking control of the wheel ourselves. In moments of heightened emotion, restraint allows us to pause, reflect, and evaluate whether a reaction is really necessary, or if it's simply an automatic response that we can choose not to engage in. One of the key ways that emotional resilience through restraint manifests is in our ability to remain calm under pressure. There are moments in life that test us, moments when things feel like they are falling apart, when everything is coming at us at once, or when we're facing a difficult situation that seems beyond our control. In these moments, the natural response is often to panic, to lash out, or to become overwhelmed by our feelings. However, emotional resilience through restraint gives us the capacity to take a step back and assess the situation from a more grounded place. It allows us to take a breath, to slow down, and to regain our composure. Instead of becoming reactive to the pressure we are under, we learn how to regulate our emotions and remain calm, even in the most intense circumstances. This ability to stay calm doesn't come from ignoring the pressure or pretending that everything is fine. It comes from understanding that we don't have to let pressure, stress, or chaos dictate our emotional state. By practicing restraint, we can acknowledge the difficulty of the situation without letting it control us. We can sit with the discomfort of the moment without rushing to fix it or escape it. This kind of emotional awareness is a cornerstone of resilience because it allows us to face hardship without being overtaken by it. Instead of reacting impulsively, we become more deliberate in our actions, recognizing that we have the power to decide how to move forward, even when things feel uncertain. Restraint also plays a critical role in how we manage conflict. Conflict, whether in personal relationships or professional environments, is inevitable. We will all encounter situations in which we disagree, are misunderstood, or face challenges that push us to our limits. How we handle these conflicts speaks volumes about our emotional resilience. Reacting defensively or aggressively might provide momentary relief or satisfaction, but it rarely resolves the underlying issue. In fact, it often escalates the conflict, leading to more tension, more hurt feelings, and more damage to relationships. Emotional resilience through restraint allows us to take a different approach. It gives us the strength to pause and evaluate the situation before we speak or act. We become more mindful of our words and how they might impact the other person. Instead of lashing out in frustration, we learn to respond with intention, recognizing that how we handle conflict will determine the long-term outcome. By practicing restraint, we also build empathy, another key aspect of emotional resilience. When we don't immediately react to a situation, we open up space to consider the perspective of others. We can listen more deeply to what the other person is saying, and we are less likely to project our own feelings and assumptions onto the situation. This moment of reflection allows us to choose a response that takes into account not only our own feelings, but also the feelings and needs of others involved. This deeper sense of empathy fosters stronger connections and reduces the likelihood of conflict spiraling out of control. Resilience through restraint means not allowing our initial emotional responses to override our capacity for understanding and compassion. The practice of restraint also enables us to avoid being governed by negative emotions like anger or resentment. When we are confronted with disrespect, injustice, or criticism, our initial emotional reaction may be one of anger. However, if we allow anger to dictate our behavior, it can quickly spiral out of control. Anger, left unchecked, leads to rash decisions, impulsive actions, and words that can be damaging to both ourselves and others. Resilience through restraint, on the other hand, allows us to experience the anger without letting it control us. Instead of acting on that anger immediately, we create the space to process it and decide how we want to respond. By doing so, we avoid making decisions or taking actions that we may later regret. One of the most powerful benefits of emotional resilience through restraint is the sense of inner peace it brings. When we react impulsively to emotions, especially negative ones, it can feel like we are caught in a never-ending cycle of frustration, anger, or anxiety. We constantly feel like we're reacting to something, whether it's an external situation or an internal feeling. However, when we practice restraint, we break free from this cycle. We stop being reactive and instead we become more proactive in how we handle our emotions. This shift in perspective brings a deep sense of peace and control. We no longer feel at the mercy of our emotions. Instead, we understand that we have the power to choose how we respond to any situation, no matter how challenging. Resilience through restraint also helps us build long-term emotional strength. Just like physical muscles, our emotional capacity grows stronger with regular practice. The more we practice restraint in difficult situations, the more resilient we become. Each time we choose not to react impulsively, we strengthen our ability to stay calm and composed the next time we are faced with adversity. Over time, this builds emotional muscle. We become less prone to emotional outbursts, less reactive to stress, and more able to weather life's storms with a steady and grounded approach. This practice of emotional resilience through restraint is also deeply tied to personal growth. The ability to pause, reflect, and choose how we respond to difficult situations requires a high level of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. It demands that we take a step back from the situation and examine our own thoughts and feelings. When we do this, we gain deeper insight into ourselves. We become more attuned to the triggers that lead to emotional reactions, and we begin to understand why we feel the way we do. This self-awareness enables us to make more informed decisions, both in how we handle our emotions and in how we interact with the world around us. As we continue to practice restraint, we find that we grow not only in our emotional resilience, but also in our ability to navigate life with wisdom and clarity. Finally, emotional resilience through restraint helps us stay connected to our values and priorities. In moments of emotional upheaval, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. We may react impulsively, prioritizing temporary relief or emotional satisfaction over our long-term goals and values. However, when we practice restraint, we are better able to stay aligned with our deeper purpose. We are less likely to be distracted by momentary emotions or external pressures. We remain focused on what truly matters: our health, our relationships, our personal growth, and our larger goals. This alignment with our values gives us the strength to endure difficult situations without losing sight of who we are and what we want to achieve. By responding with intentionality rather than reacting impulsively, we stay true to ourselves and continue to move forward in ways that are meaningful and fulfilling. In a world that often encourages quick reactions, emotional resilience through restraint stands as a quiet but powerful force. It requires strength, patience, and a deep understanding of oneself. But it is through restraint that we are able to navigate life's challenges with grace, clarity, and wisdom. Each moment of restraint is an opportunity to build our emotional strength, deepen our self-awareness, and live more fully in alignment with our values. The more we practice restraint, the more resilient we become, and the more equipped we are to handle whatever life brings our way. Silence is often misunderstood as mere absence and emptiness, a lack of engagement or action. People frequently view silence in situations of conflict, disrespect, or tension as a passive response, something that lacks power or impact. But silence, when consciously chosen, can be one of the most profound tools for setting boundaries and teaching others how to treat us. It is not an absence of communication, rather. It is a form of communication that speaks volumes, one that demands respect and underscores our emotional sovereignty. Silence sets boundaries by sending a clear, unspoken message: we will not tolerate behavior that undermines our dignity, and we will not engage in negativity or conflict that depletes our emotional well-being. In any relationship, whether personal, professional, or social, boundaries are essential for maintaining our sense of self, protecting our mental health, and ensuring that our values are respected. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others, but about saying yes to ourselves. They define what we are willing to accept, how we expect to be treated, and where we draw the line when it comes to interactions that violate our personal space, our emotions, or our time. These boundaries, however, are not always easy to establish or maintain. It's easy to become caught up in the expectations of others or feel pressured to conform to certain behaviors, especially when those around us are pushy, disrespectful, or dismissive of our needs. In these moments, silence becomes a powerful way to assert those boundaries. When we remain silent in the face of disrespect or provocation, we are not engaging with the behavior. We are refusing to allow the negativity to enter our space and influence how we feel or how we react. It's not an act of submission or avoidance, but a way of signaling that we are not going to participate in anything that doesn't align with our standards of respect. Silence in these moments is not passive, it's an active form of resistance. It's a way of protecting ourselves without having to explain ourselves or get caught in the drama. By staying silent, we create space between ourselves and the disrespect, and in doing so, we establish an invisible but powerful boundary that demands to be respected. One of the core reasons silence is so effective at setting boundaries is because it takes away the other person's ability to control the narrative. In many situations, people attempt to provoke a reaction, whether it's anger, defensiveness, or emotional distress, in order to maintain control in a conversation or to get a certain response. They may use words to belittle, criticize, or manipulate. When we choose silence, we remove their leverage. By not reacting, we regain control of the interaction, taking away their ability to dictate how we feel or how we respond. Silence forces them to confront the reality that their words or actions do not affect us, that we are not emotionally swayed by their attempts at control. This not only protects our emotional well-being, but sends a clear message that we will not allow our peace to be disturbed by others' behavior. In a world that often values noise, activity, and constant verbal engagement, silence has a unique power. It forces both parties in an interaction to reflect on their actions and words. When someone is used to provoking or pushing boundaries, their reaction to silence is often confusion or discomfort. They are forced to confront the consequences of their behavior, namely, the fact that they are not receiving the expected response. This moment of pause can be incredibly powerful because it disrupts the usual flow of interaction. It teaches the person that their words or actions have no power over us unless we allow them to. This discomfort can be a lesson in itself, teaching the person that their behavior is not as effective as they thought, that their attempts to manipulate or provoke fall flat when met with silence. Beyond the immediate interaction, silence teaches others how we expect to be treated over time. People who habitually push our boundaries or disregard our feelings may do so because they haven't learned where the line is or because they believe they can get away with it. By consistently maintaining silence when faced with disrespect or harmful behavior, we reinforce the idea that there are limits to what we will tolerate. It's not necessary to engage in heated debates or long-winded explanations to prove a point. Silence, when used deliberately, sets a clear and unmistakable boundary. It tells others that we are not afraid to remove ourselves from interactions that are not in alignment with our values and that we are willing to walk away from situations that compromise our peace. In relationships, silence can also serve as a tool for teaching others how to communicate with us. Often people fall into patterns of unhealthy communication, whether it's shouting, criticizing, or dismissing each other's feelings because they don't know a better way. They may have never learned how to navigate conflict in a constructive, respectful way. In these situations, silence can be an effective teacher. When we refrain from engaging in an argument or escalating a conflict with a verbal response, we are setting a precedent for how we expect conversations to unfold. We show others that there are more productive ways to communicate, that we are not willing to engage in arguments that are rooted in anger or frustration. In this way, silence can be a call for maturity and thoughtful dialogue. It teaches others to pause, reflect, and approach conversations with respect and consideration. At a deeper level, silence also reinforces the idea that we are responsible for our own emotional state. By choosing silence, we are demonstrating that we are not allowing someone else's words or actions to dictate how we feel. Instead, we are consciously choosing how we will respond, and we are taking responsibility for our own emotions. This is a vital lesson in emotional intelligence and self-control. It teaches others that we cannot be easily manipulated or provoked, that our emotions are not something that can be easily triggered by external circumstances. Silence, then, becomes an act of emotional sovereignty, where we assert control over our emotional state and refuse to be moved by negativity. Of course, silence is not a blanket solution for all situations. It's important to recognize that silence is only effective in setting boundaries when it is a conscious and intentional choice. It cannot be used as a tool for avoidance or suppression of feelings. If we use silence to avoid confrontation or to bury our emotions, we may be doing ourselves a disservice. Resentment can build up over time, and unaddressed issues can fester and eventually explode. However, when silence is used deliberately, when it is a choice made out of self-respect and the desire to maintain healthy boundaries, it becomes a powerful tool for teaching others how to engage with us and how we expect to be treated. Silence, in its many forms, teaches people that boundaries are not negotiable. They are not something we adjust or compromise based on the whims of others. By maintaining silence in the face of disrespect, manipulation, or mistreatment, we demonstrate that our boundaries are firm and non-negotiable. We show others that we have a strong sense of self-worth and that we will not tolerate behavior that diminishes us. Over time, this practice encourages others to respect our space, our needs, and our feelings. It teaches them that we are not afraid to stand up for ourselves, but that we prefer to do so through calm, deliberate actions rather than in reactive, impulsive ways. In professional settings, silence can also be a valuable tool for maintaining authority and respect. In the workplace, there are often power dynamics at play, and some individuals may attempt to undermine others, push their agendas, or create unnecessary conflict. By choosing silence when faced with manipulation or disrespect, we signal that we are not interested in participating in power struggles or toxic interactions. This refusal to engage in unhealthy dynamics sets a boundary that preserves our professionalism and self-respect. It signals that we are not easily swayed by office politics, gossip, or power plays. Silence becomes a way of protecting our integrity and ensuring that we remain focused on our work rather than getting caught up in unnecessary drama. There are also situations in which silence allows us to gather information, assess a situation more objectively, and make wiser decisions. When we are faced with conflict or manipulation, it's easy to become emotionally charged and make snap decisions based on anger or frustration. Silence, however, provides the space to step back and observe. It allows us to assess the situation without the distortion of immediate emotional reactions. In this way, silence not only sets boundaries, but it also helps us maintain clarity and perspective in difficult situations. It teaches us how to stay objective and how to make decisions that align with our values rather than reacting out of fear, anger, or insecurity. In many ways, silence is a lesson in patience. It's a practice of waiting for the right moment to respond, of allowing others to reveal their true intentions and motivations. When we choose silence, we don't rush into conversations or interactions. We wait for the moment when we can speak with clarity, confidence, and purpose. This patience serves as an example to others, teaching them that reactions do not always need to be immediate, that sometimes it is more powerful to pause and reflect before responding. By practicing silence in the face of disrespect or provocation, we demonstrate that we do not rush to conclusions or allow ourselves to be driven by the emotions of the moment. Instead, we choose to act with wisdom, awareness, and control. Ultimately, silence is a powerful and profound way to set boundaries and teach others how to interact with us. It is a tool that requires us to remain grounded in our own sense of self-worth, to protect our peace, and to choose how we respond to the world around us. By choosing silence in the face of negativity, we assert our right to be treated with respect. We refuse to engage in conflict that does not align with our values, and we preserve our emotional sovereignty. Silence, in this sense, is not passive. It is an active, deliberate choice that teaches others how to engage with us in healthy, respectful ways. It sets a boundary that is both clear and unspoken, one that cannot be easily ignored or undermined. It is a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is not say anything at all. In a world that constantly demands our attention, where noise, whether literal or metaphorical, surrounds us at every turn, silence stands as a sanctuary, a source of preservation, and a tool for focusing on what truly matters. In a culture of constant connectivity, where distractions are plentiful and distractions are endless, it is easy to lose sight of what is important. We often find ourselves expending energy on people, situations, or events that do not contribute to our well-being or personal growth. Silence, however, serves as a powerful tool to protect our energy, shield us from unnecessary mental and emotional depletion, and help us concentrate on what is essential, those things that align with our values, goals, and purpose. In many ways, silence acts as an internal filter, helping us to separate the noise from the meaningful. We live in an era where every moment is filled with information, be it news, social media, work demands, or the unrelenting chatter of daily life. Every piece of information, every external influence pulls on our energy. Whether it's a conversation that drains us, a conflict that consumes our thoughts, or an emotional reaction to external stimuli, these things can deplete our reserves of time, energy, and focus. In these instances, silence becomes a protective barrier. It allows us to pause, breathe, and recalibrate. When we choose silence, we are not merely choosing to not speak, we are choosing to stop engaging with the forces around us that would drain our energy. We are choosing to preserve our resources for what is important. not what is urgent or distracting. The preservation of energy is essential for maintaining emotional and mental well-being. When we are constantly pulled in different directions, whether by people or situations, we become fragmented. Our attention becomes divided, and the energy that could be directed toward our goals, passions, and relationships is instead spread thin across a multitude of inconsequential demands. Silence helps us reclaim that energy by allowing us to step back and disengage from external distractions. It provides a moment of pause, a space to check in with ourselves and discern where our energy should be directed. When we are silent, we give ourselves the opportunity to reassess what truly matters in our lives and refocus our efforts on those things. The act of silence is not simply about what we refrain from, but also about what we create space for. By choosing to stop engaging with every demand or distraction, we make room for what is truly meaningful. This could mean refocusing on relationships that nourish us, devoting more energy to personal growth, or making time for the pursuits and projects that align with our passions and purpose. Silence helps us prioritize by cutting through the noise and allowing us to focus on the things that genuinely matter. It's a way of tuning out the things that deplete us, allowing us to invest in the areas of life that bring fulfillment and growth. It's important to recognize that silence is not about withdrawal or avoidance, it's about intentionality. There's a significant difference between passively retreating from the world and actively choosing silence as a means of conserving energy. The former comes from fear, resistance, or avoidance, while the latter is a conscious decision to stop scattering our energy and to protect our inner peace. It's about recognizing that we can't give our all to everything, and in doing so, we make a more mindful choice about what we pour our attention, effort, and emotional energy into. In relationships, for example, silence can be a way of protecting our energy from being drained by negative dynamics. We all have those relationships that can feel like an emotional tug of war, where we give and give, yet find ourselves depleted. In such situations, silence can be a powerful boundary-setting tool. By choosing silence, we are not withdrawing out of spite, but rather out of necessity. We recognize that we cannot pour from an empty cup, and in choosing silence, we are protecting our ability to show up fully for the people and pursuits that truly deserve our energy. This kind of silence creates space for reflection, space to determine whether a relationship is giving us the energy and fulfillment we need, or if it is, in fact, draining us. Similarly, in professional settings, silence preserves our mental and emotional resources. The workplace can often be a place of constant demands, where time and energy are stretched thin by deadlines, meetings, and the expectations of others. It's easy to get caught up in the rush of productivity, reacting to each new task and demand as it comes. Yet, when we allow ourselves moments of silence, we're giving ourselves permission to pause and focus. We stop reacting to everything around us and begin responding more thoughtfully, allocating our energy toward tasks that align with our broader goals. In these quiet moments, we can evaluate the importance of each demand and determine whether it aligns with our values or whether it is merely a distraction. Silence is an antidote to the reactive, often chaotic nature of modern work life. It allows us to step out of the frantic pace and into a place of strategic focus. Our energy is finite. We cannot give it to everything and expect to maintain our well-being. In fact, when we spread ourselves too thin, whether it's through overcommitting, engaging in unnecessary conflicts, or trying to be everything to everyone, we deplete our reserves. Over time, this depletion can manifest as burnout, fatigue, anxiety, and a general sense of being disconnected from our true purpose. Silence serves as a protective mechanism against this. When we embrace silence, we allow ourselves to create boundaries that safeguard our energy. We learn to say no to things that don't serve our higher purpose, and we begin to say yes to things that energize us and bring us closer to our true goals. In moments of conflict, silence is a tool for regaining control over our emotional energy. How often have we found ourselves caught up in arguments, only to realize that the effort and emotional investment we put into the exchange was disproportionate to the outcome? Silence, in this case, becomes a tool for emotional restraint. It's the act of stepping away from the heat of the moment, preventing ourselves from being dragged into a cycle of escalating emotion. When we choose silence in conflict, we conserve our emotional energy and prevent it from being wasted on a battle that doesn't ultimately matter. Silence allows us to disengage from unproductive fights and create space for more thoughtful communication once the emotions have settled. Rather than reacting impulsively, we respond with clarity and intention, choosing our words carefully and aligning our energy with the outcome we truly want. Silence also enhances our capacity to focus. The more we are bombarded with external noise and internal distractions, the harder it becomes to concentrate on what matters most. Silence, whether in the form of a quiet environment or an intentional internal stillness, helps us to center ourselves and bring our attention back to the present moment. When we quiet the external world, we can listen to our inner thoughts, desires, and instincts with greater clarity. In these moments, we reconnect with our purpose and prioritize the tasks and relationships that align with that purpose. Silence, then, is not merely the absence of sound, but the presence of clarity, focus, and intention. Our modern world encourages constant multitasking and the constant splitting of our attention, which often leads to feelings of being overwhelmed or scattered. Silence offers us the chance to reset, to stop juggling everything at once and begin to focus on one thing at a time. The act of focusing our energy on one task, one relationship, or one goal at a time is an act of self-discipline and self-respect. In doing so, we prevent ourselves from becoming scattered and exhausted. We become more present in our actions, more mindful of our interactions, and more attuned to what truly matters. Silence teaches us that we don't need to be constantly engaged in multiple things at once to be productive or valuable. True productivity and fulfillment come from focusing on what is most important in the present moment. Moreover, silence cultivates inner peace. In a world where external circumstances are often unpredictable and chaotic, the ability to cultivate peace within ourselves is one of the most powerful gifts we can give ourselves. Silence creates the space for introspection, where we can connect with our deeper selves, evaluate our thoughts and emotions, and come to a place of understanding. It provides an opportunity to let go of stress, anxiety, and fear, and to connect with a sense of inner calm. This inner peace, nurtured by silence, then extends outward. When we preserve our energy through silence, we carry that calm and focus into our interactions with others, making us more effective communicators, more empathetic listeners, and more balanced individuals. In moments of solitude, silence offers us the opportunity to reconnect with our inner wisdom. In the busyness of daily life, it's easy to lose touch with our deeper desires, our intuition, and our personal truth. Yet, when we embrace silence, we create a space for that inner wisdom to emerge. In these quiet moments, we may receive insights or realizations about ourselves, our lives, or our purpose. Silence then becomes a conduit for clarity, a means of tapping into the wisdom that lies within us. It's through silence that we reconnect with our own truth, realigning ourselves with the path that is most authentic to who we are. Ultimately, silence is a gift, one that protects our energy, sharpens our focus, and restores our sense of purpose. It allows us to preserve our emotional and mental resources, setting boundaries that prevent us from being drained by the trivial and the inconsequential. Silence helps us to focus on what truly matters, to prioritize those things that align with our deepest values and our greatest aspirations. By embracing silence, we create space for clarity, growth, and self-awareness. In a world that is often noisy, chaotic, and demanding, silence offers us the peace and energy needed to stay connected to what is most important in our lives.